Silver the Hedgehog is one of the most popular and most loved characters in the entire series. But unfortunately for the time-traveling Hedgehog, he doesn't get nearly enough spotlight as he deserves. While obviously making his debut in the infamous Sonic 06, it seems like since then he's only been given a handful of appearances, and most of them being in spin-off titles. And even if he does make another mainline title appearance, he's almost never playable. And while the unfortunate truth is Silver just doesn't get a lot of screen time or playability in Sonic games, thanks to fans and the modding scene behind every Sonic game, Silver is playable in just about every single Sonic game. And with Silver being one of my personal favorite Sonic characters, I'm always on the look to be able to mod him into any Sonic game. So within this video, I'm going to be taking a look back at every mainline Sonic game and seeing if there's a mod available for Silver to be able to play him in every Sonic game. So with that being said, let's see just how many games that we can mod Silver the Hedgehog to be playable in. And of course, kicking things off right away is going to be Sonic 1. And surprisingly, there isn't too many mods that actually end up porting Silver over to Sonic 1, but one of the most impressive ones that we have right here makes his sprite look super great. I really like that it still kind of keeps that modern type of look to Silver and not making him feel too classic, but it still feels like that he belongs in Sonic 1. And I think it's especially impressive considering that we've never had Silver in a sprite setting before, so this is a completely custom sprite to put him in the classic games. I will say gameplay wise, Silver doesn't have anything different going on from what Sonic already does in the game. The biggest noticeable thing that you'll see that is different about him in gameplay is you'll see that his jump ball effect or his spin dash just looks a little bit different. As well as when he reaches max speed, you'll see that he'll start to levitate, which I think is just something that all Sonic games should do for Silver, is whenever he's reaching kind of max speed, he starts flying with his psychokinetic powers. But the modder even gave us a different life icon with the STH that's kind of similar to how Knuckles has his name in the life icon, or typically with Knuckles, it'll say KTE. Silver, they decided to do STH, which I think is fitting for him. But you'll also notice that whenever you pass the goalpost at the end of each stage, they decided to completely change Sonic to Silver for this. I think this is a really cool touch and something that they definitely didn't have to do for the mod, as it's such a minor thing to put into it, but it is a really cool touch to it. The last thing that I kind of want to touch on with the mod in Sonic 1, and possibly one of the weirdest things that they decided to change for this, but it's still really cool at that, is they decided to replace Eggman for Sonic in this. I guess Silver is just taking the whole Iblis trigger thing a bit too far, to the point where Sonic is now using Eggman's mechs and different machines and bots. But it's kind of funny going into any boss fight and just kind of seeing Sonic sitting in the egg pod. Maybe in some different timeline, Sonic is actually the bad guy over Eggman and Silver is the true hero of the day. But it's just kind of a really cool and funny touch to the mod. And I guess it's a bit fitting just with the way that Silver was hunting down Sonic in Sonic 06. But when using this mod, I definitely did not expect to see Sonic at the end of each stage as the boss fight. But moving on to Sonic 2, we actually have the same exact mod that we had in Sonic 1. The modder decided to completely port over the same exact model and animations and everything and just put it over to Sonic 2. And yes, of course, if you're asking, Sonic is still here replacing Eggman for all the boss fights. But of course, the really cool thing with Sonic 2 is we are now able to achieve a super form in this game. So after collecting all 7 Chaos Emeralds, you are then able to turn into Super Silver. I've always loved the design of Super Silver, and he actually looks super good inside of this mod as well. I really like his running animation where he's just basically flying the entire time and having his arms held out like that. They could have 100% just used the super animations from Sonic in Sonic 2, but I like that they decided to do a custom thing for Silver in this mod. And Super Silver is truly just a form that we need to see more of in the future, in my opinion. Moving on to Sonic CD. And when initially kind of doing research on mods for this video, I kind of thought that Sonic CD would be one of the easiest to get a mod for Silver in, but I was humbled pretty quickly into my search of trying to find a mod for him, as it just doesn't really exist. I initially thought that it would have been really easy considering the game is all about time travel, and that's literally Silver's thing, so I assumed that somebody would have wanted to have Silver in Sonic CD, considering that it'd be a game that is pretty fitting for him, especially in the classic era. But from everything that I can try to find in terms of mods for Sonic CD, I haven't found anything that's available for him. I've only found 2 things that are just somewhat of putting him in the game in some capacity. The first one was a video that it looks like someone was working on a mod for Silver putting him in the game. It was just very incomplete. You can see that the sprite is a little goofy looking compared to the last one that we saw, but it doesn't look bad by any means, it's just a little incomplete. And it also looks like he has a running animation that's similar to how he ran in 06. But besides that, that's really all that there was available to it, and the only kind of thing that I can find about this mod ever existing was a video created by Garrulous64. I think I'm saying that name correctly, I'm sorry if I'm not. But it looks like there was a mod that was shared to him to make a video about, and this is the only thing that I could see where he was actually a playable character in Sonic CD, and I can't even find where this mod would be, as it looked like it was just kind of completely scrapped by its creator eventually. Considering that this video was 7 years ago, I don't think we're going to be getting that mod anytime soon, or ever. The other mod that I found is basically where it replaces Silver for Amy in the game. I'm not really sure why this is a thing, or why I even stumbled upon this, but this is called Sonic CD Son Ilver Edition, so I guess if you're into that ship by any means, then I guess there you go. Just basically replaces Silver for Amy, and Silver will chase after Sonic. But that's the only way that you can actually experience Silver in Sonic CD with something that is actually released. So somebody should definitely make a mod, because I feel like that would be such a fitting thing for Silver, as having him in Sonic CD with the whole time travel thing to it. But moving on to Sonic 3 and Knuckles. Sonic 3 and Knuckles is obviously one of the most modded Sonic games to date, and actually has a few different Silver mods available to it, but the biggest kind of issue that I run into with a lot of Silver mods is a lot of them feel super incomplete. A lot of them will have a different sprite swap or even different animations in them, but it's still missing a lot of different things to be added to the mod. Or even sometimes you'll run into issues where you go into certain sections or certain animations, and it'll just revert back to Sonic. So it took me a little while to find one that I actually ended up really liking in Sonic 3, and it still looks like that it's somewhat of a work in progress, but they do state that it's 98% finished. And it definitely feels like it's pretty complete for the most part, but I think one of the biggest reasons on why I wanted to showcase this mod the most is it actually changes the gameplay for Silver in this. Compared to the Sonic 1, 2, and even the CD one, if you want to count that in this video so far, none of them have actually made some drastic changes to Silver, or even made it feel like you're truly playing as him in the game. When you think of Silver, I really just instantly think of his psychokinesis powers that he has. Being able to fly with them, being able to pick stuff up, and this mod actually has somewhat of that feature to it. You can notice right away that not only the sprite just looks incredible for Silver, but you can also see in the bottom right corner that you have the action bar available to you that you see in Sonic 06. Or from there, you can go ahead and fly with Silver and shoot his Psycho Knives that you actually see in Sonic Generations in his rival fight. And while that is great and it does sound super broken, that's the point of the action gauge on the bottom right. As you can't do this for an extreme amount of time, it's very limited to how much you can do it, just like it is in Sonic 06 with Silver's gameplay. And I really like that they decided to implement that, just to make it to where Silver isn't too broken in Sonic 3. I think if you could just fly endlessly or pick up anything that you really want with Silver, I think you'd be a little bit busted if you ask me. So I like that it doesn't feel too much like you're completely breaking the game by using him. The one thing that I would say that I don't super love about it is his running animation, where it just looks like his feet are moving really fast. I think it would have just been okay if Silver was just simply flying, or even just kind of having a simple walking animation for his run. It just doesn't feel super right for Silver, if you ask me. It doesn't look terrible or bad by any means, it just doesn't feel super fitting for him as a character. But of course, another really great thing about this mod as well is when obtaining all the Super Emeralds, you can actually go into Silver's hyper form. This is obviously something that we've actually never seen before and has never been a canon thing, but it's really cool to be able to see him turn into his hyper form if that were ever to be possible, where he's flashing all the colors. And of course, you get all the great things that come alongside Hypersonic, the after images, invincibility, moving faster. But the really cool thing they decided to add with this mod is your action bar won't go down whenever you're using this form. So if you feel like flying forever, you can basically do that, which is pretty crazy to think, because when you're flying with him, you can go up and down with it. So if you really do kind of want to feel super broken with this character, just unlock his hyper or super form and you're able to do that. It also has the really little details of having his life icon in the bottom left corner alongside his name. I actually kind of like how they completely spelled out the name instead of just doing STH this time. That just feels a little bit more fitting, I guess, for me, but it's really just a minor detail that doesn't really matter. And they also decided to keep the goalpost change as well, that I super love that they decided to change in this mod as well. But transitioning over to 3D now, we have Sonic Adventure. We're over in Sonic Adventure once again. Silver really only has one mod that truly feels complete, but I will say it's a pretty damn good one at that. This is going to go over Sonic as a playable character, and it doesn't really change any of the animations that Sonic already has. But I will say the model that is put over Sonic actually does look super well done. It just kind of gives me the vibe of his Sonic 06 model just shrunken down a little bit in my opinion. I will say anytime you kind of look at the front of him and kind of see him front facing, he does look a little lifeless, like there's just no thoughts behind his eyes. So I won't say that the model is perfect by any means, but it definitely does look really solid. And I also really like the touch that they decided to change his spin dash color to more of that cyan lighter blue color. But I do kind of wish that his running animation was him flying, and I also kind of wish that they changed some of his voice lines that he has, as it's just simply just Sonic's voice that's slapped onto him. However, one of the really cool things about this mod is it does have a super form. So whether you make it to the end of the game or end up using the mod to be able to use Super Sonic in stages, you can actually see that Super Silver is available to us in this mod. Now the model does look pretty well done, and I still really like that his quills stay faithful to what he actually looks like in his super form. I will say that he is extremely gold, and I will say that feels a little bit unfitting on him. His Super Silver is a little bit more of a beige color, but I'm pretty sure you just kind of took the textures from Super Sonic in Sonic Adventure and put it on Silver here. And having a super form at all was definitely something that didn't need to be added, but I'm super glad that they did decide to put it in here, as when using him for an entire play through the game, it really feels like you're using Silver through the entirety of Sonic Adventure. So if you're simply just looking for a mod to put Silver in the game that gives you a really good model of him, this is a great mod for that. If you're looking for custom animations and completely changing a bunch of stuff about Silver in the game, that unfortunately just doesn't exist. But I think that this is still a great option to be able to use him in the game. And hell, if you even want to double down on the amount of silvers that you want to use in the game, you do have an option available to you to put Silver over Tails. I will say the model looks a little janky, but it still does look like Silver at the end of the day, and I will say his running animation fits him a lot more as he takes Tails' running animation from Adventure. And he even has Pete Capella voice lines, which was obviously Silver's original voice actor from Sonic 06. I mean, hey, if you want to be a Silver Psycho fan, you could just put Silver over Sonic and Silver over Tails and run around as two Silvers. But moving into the sequel in Sonic Adventure 2, and this is where Silver's mods start getting good. Sonic Adventure 2 is another game that is heavily modded by fans, and they definitely did not cheap out when it came to Silver. Silver has a few different mods available to him, and there are a few different options that you can use that will replace either Sonic or Shadow if you want to use him in the main story of the game. But the biggest one I recommend is actually one that decides to go over Metal Sonic, where from there, if you end up using the Character Select Plus mod, you can use Silver in any level that you would like. And the cool thing about him going over Metal Sonic now is you can actually use him in the two-player battle mode of the game, with now having Sonic, Shadow, and Silver available to you as playable characters in that. Metal Sonic also makes sense considering that he has a levitating run animation, and it's really just fitting for Silver. It also seems like they did some tweaks to the animations as well, just to kind of fit his more floating style that he has, but I really like that he is floating for the most part, as it just, again, feels really fitting for Silver. Also, whenever Metal Sonic uses his black shield, he gets this weird kind of diamond around him. They ended up changing that for Silver to kind of look like his psychokinesis powers, as well as just making the model look super good and super fitting for Sonic Adventure 2. The mod actually just feels pretty officially done and just looks extremely well in my opinion. You can tell a lot of love, time, and work really went into this mod for Silver. And of course it has bonus points for having Pete Capella's voice lines over him. I've already expressed in the past that I absolutely love Pete Capella's voice on Silver, and I still think to this day is the best voice actor we've gotten for him. So anytime his voices are put on a mod for Silver, it definitely gets some bonus points for me. But just the decision of putting him over Metal Sonic just makes so much more sense with a lot of his animations that Metal Sonic has, and it really makes me wish that we someday get a Sonic Adventure 3 with Silver featured in it. But moving on to Sonic Heroes, where there's 2 mods in total for Silver to put him in Heroes, with the first one being where it just puts Silver and Blaze on Team Sonic, or it looks like it puts Blaze over Sonic and Silver over Tails, and for whatever reason, I guess Knuckles is here. But I will say I don't super love this mod, just because of the way that Silver looks, as he's super shrunken down and just looks really tiny. It just doesn't look super good for Silver in my opinion, but I do like that they decided to pair him up with Blaze. But the reason I don't want to touch on this mod a bunch is there's a better version of Silver in a different mod, at least in my opinion, and that's going to be the Team 06 mod, where this replaces Team Sonic with Team 06, with obviously keeping Sonic, moving Shadow over into Knuckles' spot, and putting Silver in the game to go over Tails' spot. I love these 3 Hedgehogs together as a group, and I honestly wish that we got the 3 of them together more often. But just simply looking at Silver's model available to us in this, it looks like he really does belong, and it really looks like they really tried to Sonic Heroesify him, where he kind of has that weird kind of look to him. The Heroes models just have a specific type of look to them that is just super nostalgic feeling to me, and they were really able to capture that with this for Silver in this mod. But they were even able to put in a bunch of custom voice lines from Pete Capella and even have some interaction voice lines as well, where sometimes Shadow or Sonic will actually say Silver. And Silver even has his own custom running animation where he'll fly similar to he does in any of the other games that he's available in. I don't go back and play Sonic Heroes too often, as it's a pretty big commitment to play through the entire game, but there has been a few different times that I've decided to rerun through Team Sonic's playthrough and decided to slap this mod on, as I just love these three Hedgehogs together, but also having Silver in the game. If by some chance we ever do get a Sonic Heroes 2 or something inspired from Sonic Heroes, where we can kind of have a custom team and matchup, I would love to see these three together eventually sometime in the future. But overall, like the Sonic Adventure 2 mod for Silver, this is another one that is just extremely well done. I'm really glad in the 2000s era of games that a lot of them have really good Silver mods available to us, as he does really feel like he does fit in those games. Moving on to Shadow the Hedgehog. Shadow the Hedgehog isn't typically a game that had been modded a bunch until recently, but it seems like there's a modder that's been going pretty all out with just some crazy looking mods, and Silver of course is one of them, where he not only did a Sonic 06 pack that has a Silver model as well as a Silver Android and Super Silver available to you, but you also just have a simple Silver model swap as well that kind of looks similar to the Heroes model that we just talked about, and it overall just looks extremely well done. And hell, it even has Super Silver available to you if you end up getting to the ending of the game. Shadow isn't a game that I've gotten too big into modding, but it seems like the modding scene might be something to keep your eye out on, as it seems like a bunch of these mods are super well done, and it seems like one specific modder has been doing an incredible job on some of these characters. Next is Sonic 06. And I feel like I don't really have to explain it, but Silver is obviously one of the main playable characters, having his own story and being his debut game. Now, if you do want to look at Silver's mods, there isn't much available to you as well, as the only mod available for Silver in Sonic 06 is just putting Rayman over him. Don't know why that's the only mod available to him, but it is an option for you. However, if you do want to be able to play him through Sonic and Shadow's story, you can do that in Sonic Project 06, where if you download the character swapper mod, you can then switch to Silver and use him through any of Sonic or Shadow's stage. So if you want to use him through the entirety of the game, you can 100% do that. Whether you can complete Sonic and Shadow stages with only using Silver, I don't know. I would imagine that you probably can for the most part, though you might run into some issues like the Mach speed sections. But moving on to the storybook series in Sonic and the Secret Rings. Now, Silver is available to some capacity in Sonic and the Secret Rings base game, being available as a unlockable character inside the 2-player mode of the game. And if you've never played the party mode game, I would definitely recommend it, as I think it's some of the best multiplayer gameplay that Sonic has to offer. However, there is technically a mod if you want to put him in the base game over Sonic. I say technically because if you actually look at the model, it's just Sonic just with a silver coat of paint, where everything looks like Silver in the sense of having his chest fur, even his black eyelids, having everything when it comes to color correctly. It's just it looks exactly like Sonic. So you can't really fully say that you could put Silver in the game, but I guess to some capacity you can if you're really desperate to put Silver in Sonic in the Secret Ring, so that is available to you. But moving things over to the fan favorite in Sonic Unleashed. Silver has always kind of had a mod available to him to go over the daytime stages of modern Sonic, where it actually had a pretty solid looking model, especially for a modern Silver look. Considering that we don't really ever get a modern look at Silver all that often, there isn't too much to give a reference point off of. It seems like the modders have actually done a pretty damn good job at it, alongside giving him his own custom flying animation when he's running, as well as his original voice actor's voice lines of Pete Capella, much like the other mods that we've already looked at. And while modern Silver has had an available option to us for quite some time now in the modding scene, the Werehog actually didn't have a Silver the Werehog mod up until recently when Sonic Unleashed Recompiled released, where this not only took the really good looking modern Silver mod that had the custom animation, Super Silver available to you, and custom voice lines, but now we have the Silver the Werehog where he looks completely different. This obviously has a very fuzzy version of Silver alongside his spikes on the bottom of his shoes, and overall just looks great. I love that they decided to make his fur a lot darker and then have white tips at the end of his quills, as well as having the gigantic fur piece that he has on Silver. I also just really like that they decided to keep his shoes normal to how they typically are and just add spikes on the bottom of them. I feel like that's really just fitting for it, and still kind of makes it feel like it's true to who Silver is. But with the release of Sonic Unleashed Recompiled just over a year ago now, we've seen some great looking mods, and I am so glad that this mod is now available to us to do a complete playthrough of Silver Unleashed. I've always just kind of been curious on what a Hedgehog version of Silver would look like, and I feel like this definitely does not disappoint. But moving on to the last of the storybook series in Sonic and the Black Knight. Now, Sonic and the Black Knight is another game that just doesn't really have any mods, but very surprisingly, the best and most well done mod is actually a Silver mod in the game. As in the world of Sonic and the Black Knight, Silver goes by the name of Sir Galahad. Now, Silver was intended to be a character within the main story, but was scrapped for unknown reasons in the actual base game. However, he was still available to be playable in the 2-player mode of the game. So he is in the game to some capacity, but if you do want to use him in the main story, there is a mod available to you, where this completely replaces Sonic to his entirety and puts Sir Galahad over him, where you'll run through the entire game as Silver. This, for the most part, is just a simple model swap of putting Galahad over Sonic, but this still looks extremely well done, especially when you can compare it to the likes of the last storybook game mod that we featured. This looks super well done and completely ripped perfectly. It really just makes me wish that Sir Galahad had more spotlight in Sonic and the Black Knight, as I think he's just truly a really cool character a part of this universe. And I wouldn't mind seeing some more Sonic and the Black Knight mods in the future, especially if they're as good looking as this one. Moving on into Sonic Colors. And Sonic Colors is another game that I expected that would actually feature a Silver mod. However, we are here once again in a game that just doesn't feature one. Sonic Colors was a game that has been out for quite some time, and when Sonic Colors Ultimate released, you would have thought that the modding scene would be a lot bigger. And while there has been some great mods like the Shadow mod that we previously visited in the last video, Silver just doesn't have one, which is pretty shocking to see. Silver is available to some capacity in the DS version of Sonic Colors with Blaze, where he makes somewhat of a cameo in that. So I guess you could argue and say that he is available in Sonic Colors in some ways. But when it comes to the console version of the game, there just is no way to actually experience Silver in any way, which is so surprising. So I definitely hope that somebody creates one in the future. Next up is Sonic Generations. And much like the Shadow video, the modding doesn't get much better than what the Silver mod has to offer in this. And of course, I'm talking about the real Silver mod. This has been a mod that I've used countless amount of times for just how good it is and just how much it changes about the character. This gives you completely different custom animations to match Silver over Sonic, like different grinding animations, different running animations, different tricks, different victory, and hell, it even gives you a different board to use in City Escape. Or even the car that you use in Seaside Hill is now Silver's Extreme Gear board that you see in Sonic Riders. But besides all the custom animations and great different things that this has to offer, the model just looks great and truly looks like Silver to the fullest. I don't think you can get much better looking of a Silver model than what this actually has to offer. But wait, there's even more to this mod, where there's even an option where you can take his Blaze alongside with you to help you go through stages. Where if you turn this on in the configuration menu, you can hit the triangle or Y button, and Blaze will fling forward, destroying any enemy in her path. Very similar to the challenge act that she's available in with Sonic. But you can use this in any stage to your whole heart's content. And typically where you would have Silver as a rival fight instead of just fighting yourself in a doppelganger fight, they actually decided to put Infinite in there, which is super fitting for him. The animations look great for Infinite, and it obviously is very canon to how their fight goes in Sonic Forces, of them dueling off against each other in a cutscene. And once you finally get to the end of the game, you also have Super Silver available to you, and this once again just looks great. I really like the coloring of him. His quills go up perfectly, and I really like the detail of changing all of his light cyan blue type of color on his wrist cuffs, as well as the logo on his gloves, and the bottom of his feet turned to a yellow color instead of that cyan blue. I think that's just a really cool little detail that looks really well on Super Silver. But this mod was made a few years after the release of Sonic Generations, so there was a few different Silver mods that were available to us before the real Silver mod. And the really cool thing that some of those featured was a classic version of Silver. Classic Silver obviously has never existed, and I really doubt that it ever will, but it's kind of cool to see what that could potentially look like in Sonic Generations thanks to modding. Just kind of seeing a short stubby version of Silver, but also just being able to do an entire Silver Generations playthrough, where you can match these two mods together and play through all of the modern and classic Sonic stages as Silver. This is pretty much just a custom model put on classic Sonic where all of his animations are the same. They're not quite as fun as what the real Silver mod has to offer, but I'm pretty sure that was almost years of work to make. But the model does look great for classic Silver, and he also does have a custom color for his spin dash as well. And it even has a Super Silver version of classic Silver, which is a really good looking model as well. I have played through a Silver playthrough of the game multiple times now just because of how good these two mods go together. And it makes me really happy just to see a classic version of Silver, considering that classic Sonic just doesn't really get a lot of mods out there. So it's really cool to see this version of him. Moving on to Sonic Lost World, where there actually is a pretty solid Silver mod available to us that has a pretty good looking model, as well as a pretty good running animation where he ends up levitating like he typically does. But that's about it when it comes to it. It doesn't have anything when it comes to custom voice lines or anything like that. A really common trend with a lot of these more modern games is the models end up tending to look a lot better, especially with now Sonic Lost World being available on Steam. A lot easier to be able to mod the game as well, which allowed a lot more mod support for the game. Sonic Lost World has always been a pretty big guilty pleasure of mine going back to, and I love just seeing all the mod support for this and also having a great Silver mod to go alongside with it. But somewhat moving back into the classics, we have Sonic Mania. Sonic Mania has a few different mods available for Silver, but my personal favorite one is one that actually acts pretty similar to the Sonic 3 mod that we explored, where the sprite looks really fitting for Sonic Mania, but also has that action meter in the bottom right corner similar to Sonic 06. Where from there you can go ahead and pick up and throw enemies, fly forward with Silver, and just completely break the game with him, as you can levitate for quite some time with him. And even when you end up going into a special stage to be able to collect all the Chaos Emeralds, he even has his own model to go alongside the special stages, and he looks super cute in my opinion. Not all Sonic Mania mods feature a custom model for these special zones, but I'm really glad that the Silver one does, as it looks really cool. His running animation does look a little awkward, just with his hands kind of going side to side and looking kind of a little stiff, but when you do end up getting up to Mach 3, he does start levitating and it looks a lot more natural for Silver. I know I said it in the past, but I think it's a real shame that Sega has never considered making a classic style game in a modern setting, almost like a more modern day Sonic Rush or even a modern day Sonic Advance, with having characters like Shadow and Silver in it. I think it could make out for a really cool game, and these mods are really an expression of just how good those could be. So I really hope that sometime in the future, if they decide to do a more modern setting 2D game, that they'll really consider adding characters like Shadow and Silver into it, or potentially even some other Sonic characters, as I think it could make it out to be really cool. But moving on to the game that's connected with Sonic Mania in Sonic Forces, where this once again has another really great looking model, as well as some different custom running animations, and even has Super Silver available to you once you unlock that. Or should I say download it, considering it's a DLC in this game. They do end up using Pete Capella voice lines for Silver, but I think they could have done Quentin Flynn, considering that was his voice actor during this time. But like I said, I can't complain. But overall, the mod that goes over modern Sonic actually does work pretty damn well. But if you also want to double down on Silver once again, you can actually go ahead and use the mod that is Silver as Avatar. Or from there, you can actually go ahead and put some custom parts on Silver, as well as have him playable in every custom avatar stage. Now, this model definitely does not look perfect by any means, as his eyes are a little bit goofy looking, and some of the texture on them is a bit goofy as well. But overall, it's still not a bad looking model by any means, and it's still really cool to have an option for him to go over the avatar, as well as some customization options for him as well. I guess the only thing we're missing to complete the trio is a classic Silver mod, and I highly doubt we'll ever get that, as the Sonic Forces modding scene is pretty dead. Which I think, to be fair, is kind of for a good reason. The game just isn't that fun. But moving into the open world game of Sonic Frontiers. Now, Silver has two really popular mods when it comes to Sonic Frontiers, but my personal favorite one is the real Silver Frontiers mod, where both mods have a really good looking model. This one looks pretty well done and super detailed if you take a really close look at him, with having some pretty crazy texture to him. But he also has some different custom gameplay options where when air boosting, he will actually fly. And of course, already just has some custom animations of just running on the ground and flying. But even when you're just standing there idled, Silver will just float there waiting for you to move him, which I think is super cool looking. He has his own custom jump ball, as well as some different effects to match that cyan blue color of his psychokinesis powers. But a really cool thing that the modder decided to do was add a bunch of custom skins available to him as well, where like Sonic, where you have the option to change into his soap shoes, he actually made a version for Silver which is completely custom, where it still looks like Silver's shoe, it just has that more soap shoe look to them, which I think is super cool. It just kind of looks like a boot version of the soap shoes in Silver's color. Another skin you have available to you is Server Silver, which I believe originates from Sonic Speed Simulator and is also in Sonic Rumble now, which is kind of a cool alternative option. And each of these skins are also available to be used in the Super Fights, where you can use Super Silver. And when it comes to how Super Silver actually looks, I think this is the best looking so far of any of the mods that we've seen. It looks extremely accurate to the way that he did in 06. And even if you play through DLC 3 all the way through with this mod, you can actually go ahead and unlock Super Silver 2, where he has those glowing blue eyes and red aura around him. They went into so much detail for this, and so much work and dedication you can tell went into this mod, and it's truly just one of the best Silver mods available, and one of the best Sonic Frontiers mods at that. This is a mod I use quite frequently when going back to Sonic Frontiers, and I definitely recommend checking it out if you're a big fan of Silver. But moving on to the last classic Sonic game in Sonic Superstars, where someone made a custom looking Silver model over Sonic that actually looks pretty well done. It isn't perfect by any means, as there are definitely a few times where it kind of cuts out a little bit. And it also looks like the logo on his gloves is a little bit goofy as well. But overall, Sonic Superstars just doesn't get a lot of mod support, and for one of the mods in the game, I would say this is actually one of the better looking ones. I love just how long he makes Silver's quills look, as well as just looking like a true modern version of classic Silver. This doesn't have any custom animations or anything like that, as it works pretty similar to how Sonic works in Sonic Superstars, but I really just love the way that he actually looks, and I would love if this mod ended up getting a big update, as I think it's really close to being super good looking and one of the best mods that Superstars has to offer. He also does have a Super Silver version available to him when you unlock that in the game. However, he just looks a little bit too golden, if you know what I mean, where his eyelids even themselves turn completely into like a yellowish gold color. Well, it definitely is not perfect by any means, but hey, it does at least have an option to do that, and I will say his quills actually look really good in the super form as well. But overall, I would just say that this classic Silver mod available to us for this is just really cute looking. I love just how adorable Silver actually looks like in a classic side, and I really just hope that we end up getting that eventually. And last but certainly not least, we have Shadow Generations. And much like Sonic Generations, Silver has another really good mod for Shadow Generations, being the Sonic X Silver Generations mod. Where once again, I feel like I'm being a little bit repetitive, but he has a really good textured looking model here. I won't say that it's perfect, as it looks a little goofy sometimes, where he's almost a little too fuzzy looking. I don't know what it is. It looks a little off, but it still looks really good. But you, of course, once again, have some different custom animations. I will say when you first start running with him, his feet move really fast to kind of match up with Shadow's skating. And that looks a little goofy, but when you actually finally get to full speed, it looks fine. And then when you're boosting, it actually looks great, as he has the same boost animation as Shadow does, but that looks great on Silver as well. But I will say when you air boost with him, he does have some custom gameplay to him where he will actually fly, kind of similar to the way that the Doom Wings work in the game. He just kind of always has that ability, but that is something that you can configure to turn off. So if you don't want that option and you just want to play Shadow Generations the normal way, you can do that. You have a bunch of different custom voice lines to fit in the game. His Doom Surf actually turns into an extreme gearboard, which is super cool and super fitting. And the really cool thing that Shadow Generations does that not a lot of other mods do in the world, where a lot of its mod is have a bunch of different custom skins available to each of the mods. This has become more popular now with adding a bunch of skins to mods, which I think is really cool, but it was really popular in Shadow Generations and still is. So this mod actually has 10 available different skins that you can configure in the mod loader to use for Silver. That being his default look, his Sonic Forces look, his Sonic Freeriders look, Shadow Silver, which I believe is just Shadow wearing Silver's gloves and shoes. You have Sir Galahad from Sonic and the Black Knight. We have Lunar New Year Silver, Super Silver, Smash Brawl Silver, which I think looks extremely cursed if you asked me. You have Race Suit Silver, which is actually one of my personal favorite. I think that looks so good on him. Ghost Silver, Tech Knight Silver, which is another really cool looking one from Sonic Forces Speed Battle, and Venice, which is actually the concept art for Silver, which is a really cool detail and a really cool callback to what his concept art looked like for Sonic 06. And lastly, you have his movie skin, which is available in the movie Tokyo Act, which actually looks really detailed, and I imagine that Silver is going to look somewhat similar to this if he ends up being in Sonic Movie 4 in some way. Maybe at the end credits. I guess we'll have to wait and see. But this is just another mod that was just extremely well done, and I love just how much customization there is available to us in this one, as this by far has the most of any of the Silver mods that we talked about in this video. When it comes to all the mainline Sonic games, that's it. That is all of them, and honestly, there wasn't very many that we couldn't access Silver into, and that's great to see. Considering that he is one of the most popular characters, I love seeing him available in so many games available to us. I really hope in the future that Silver gets more spotlight and a mainline role and actually playable. I think it's really time for us to give Silver another chance, as he's definitely a character that deserves it in my opinion, and I really hope that the future looks a lot brighter for Silver. A super big shout out to any of the modders that created any of the mods that I featured in today's video. Also go ahead and shout out each of the mod creators in the description below, and you can check out their channels or look them up to see if you want to enjoy any of these mods. I will say that 95% of the mods that I found in this video are going to be available to you on a Gamebanana, so in case you're wondering on where to download them, that's where you'll have to go and find them. Or check out any of the creators that I'll link in the description below. But with all that being said, guys, let me know your favorite mod that I featured in today's video, as well as what other characters you'd like to see me make videos about when it comes to modding them in every mainline Sonic game. But I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace!